Hey guys, it's Miss Famer. I am going to give you the answer key to today's practice test. So, in the first problem here, they ask you to solve for x and y. When they ask you to solve for x and y, you need to make sure that both your equations are in ax plus by equals c form. This first one looks good. The second one, however, though, we need to get into that form. So I'll do that by subtracting 3x from both sides of the equation. I'm going to write it as 3x plus y equals 1. Now, since this is a system of equations, we're solving two equations at once, we can go ahead and take the coefficients and put them into our calculator. So it'll look like 4, -2, and -3, and then -3, 1, and 1. This is where you'll go into your calculator, you'll go to your apps, your Poly Simultaneous Solver, and you'll just type in those numbers. The solutions, once you do that, will be x equals 0.5 and y equals 2.5. The second one is also solving simultaneous equations. However, this is a word problem. So the admission fee at a small fair is $1.50 for children and $4 for adults. On a certain day, 2,200 people enter and $5,050 is collected. They want to know how many children and adults attended. So the two things we're dealing with here are children and adults. So I'm going to say let C equal the number of children, and we'll let A equal the number of adults. So we know that in total there were 2,200 people there. So however many people were children plus however many people were adults gives us a total number of 2,200 people. Then there's the money aspect. It was $1.50 per child plus $4 for an adult, and they raised a total of $5,050. Same thing goes here. It's a system of equations. So what we can do is we can go ahead and put this in the app in our calculator. We'll do 1, 1, and 2,200. And then we'll do 1.54 and 5,050. So they wanted to know how many people attended, how many children were there, how many adults were there. So once you put that into your calculator, your x1 will be your C, and then your x2 will be your A. So in this case, C ends up being 1,500, and A ends up being 700. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. Number 3 shows the following lines 1 and 2, and they're telling us that the lines are perpendicular to each other. We know when lines are perpendicular, they have negative, reciprocal slopes. All right, so they would like the gradient or the slope of L1. Well, if I'm looking at L1, I'm realizing there's not really a way for me to tell. But if I look at L2 here, there's 2 points. So I'm going to find the slope of L2 to start using my slope formula. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to have, using these 2 points, I'll have 0 minus -2, 5 minus 0. So I'm getting 2 over 5 as the slope of L1, but the problem asks for the slope of L2. However, I know they're perpendicular, so I know it has to be the negative reciprocal of 2 over 5. So the gradient of L1 would have to be -5 over 2. Number 4 asks, tells you there's the temperature in a scale called Kelvin, and the temperature in Kelvin is given by K equals C plus 273. They'd like to know what the temperature is in Celsius when it's 0 degrees in Kelvin. So I'm just going to substitute in. I want to know what is C when K equals 0. So 0 for K, C plus 273. I need to get the C here by itself, so I'll subtract 273. So negative 273 equals C. So when the Kelvin temperature is 0, the Celsius temperature would be negative 273. Moving to the back, number 5 asks you to put the lines into ax plus by plus c equals 0 form. So what we need to do is just get these in a form where it's equal to 0 on one side and everything else is on the other. This one's already equal to 0. I'm just going to rewrite it as 3x minus y plus 1 equals 0, just so it looks more similar to what the question asked. And then this one here, I need this side to be equal to 0, so I'll subtract y from both sides. So I get 0 equals 2x minus y minus 1. A lot of times in class, we would ask you to put the lines into ax plus by equals c form. Watch out for that as well. This one just asked you to have it be equal to 0. And number 6, they ask you to graph the line. So in order to graph the line, we need our line to be in y equals mx plus c form. Sorry, the board's a little off in the middle. So let's get the y by itself here. I'll subtract 2x from both sides of the equation. I end up with 3y equals 12 minus 2x. I'll divide every term by 3. So I end up with y equals 4 minus 2/3 x. So if I'm graphing that, I'll start at 4. That's where it intersects my y-axis. And it's a negative 2 over 3, so I'll go down to 3 to the right. Down to 3 to the right. Should look something like this. All right, number 7. Number 7 asks you for, it tells you the gradients of several lines, so the slopes of all of these lines. And they'd like 2 lines that are parallel. Well, to be parallel, you know they need to have the same slope. So let's see which lines have the same slope. Now, when looking at this, I'm seeing that a lot are written as fractions, so I just want to be consistent. I'm also going to write this as 1/2. 0.5 is 1/2. 3 over 6 is also 1/2. And I also know that 0.4 is actually 2/5 as a fraction. I think if they're all fractions, it's easier to compare them all. So which 2 have the same slope? Well, it looks like what? D and E both have the same slope. They only asked for 1 pair, but let's just name if there's more. And it also looks like B and, what is it? B and F. No, not B and F. B and G. B and G have the same slope. They both have negative 5 over 2. Then they asked if there's any that are at right angles with each other. Well, if they're at right angles with each other, that means they are perpendicular. And we know that perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. So are any of these negative reciprocals? I think that, let's see, B and H are. So B and H have negative reciprocal slopes. And I believe, let's see, A and C, right? A and C have negative reciprocal slopes as well. Last question, number 8, is asking you to determine x and y intercepts. Remember, if you're asked for an x-intercept, that's when you're substituting in 0 for y. If they ask you for a y-intercept, that's when you're substituting in 0 for x. So let's do this separately. So if I'm trying to find the x-intercept, I'm going to take the equation as is. I don't need to rewrite it. And everywhere I see a y, I'll put a 0. So it'll be 2x minus 0 equals 3. So 2x equals 3. That means x equals 3 over 2. So if I wanted to write this as a point, I know my x is 3 over 2, and for y, I put a 0. So my x-intercept is 3/2, 0. Now let's go ahead and do the y-intercept over here. Y-intercept, that's when x is 0, so in place of the x, I'll put a 0. And then I'll solve for y, so I get 0 minus y equals 3. So negative y equals 3, which must mean that positive y is negative 3. So if I'm going to write this as a point, I had 0 in place of my x, and negative 3 is what I got for my y. So that is the coordinate for my y-intercept. I hope you found this video helpful. You can always go back, rewind, pause, fast forward, whatever it may be. Good luck with your studying, and good luck tomorrow on your tests.